in these sort of facilities, it can't have been an accident.
So your experience gained as a medical journalist immediately helped you to realise that something very unusual and important had happened here, is that right?
Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely. And I also felt confident about doing the research into it and filing charges, which I did eventually. Because of that background, I had done quite a lot of work in that field, so I felt confident I could handle it.
Okay, now, something which I do want to ask you is that many people have understandably asked the question, who is this woman and where does she come from out of nowhere? And I can resonate with that, because people say that about us, and people feel sometimes an understandable sense of territoriality. It's like, wait a minute, this is my area, or wait a minute, I've been researching this for 20 years, or where's this newcomer come from? Now, were you conscious of the fact that when you started to write about this stuff, people would be saying, who is this person? We've never heard her name before.
I have to be honest and say my concern was to try and stop and publicise what I saw as a big crime and threat. I was very concerned that there was no publicity, no action being taken by the Austrian government, and that Baxter could release this material the day after.
And it should have been news headlines all over the world.
Absolutely.
It was underwhelming, wasn't it?
It was underwhelming, and that created the risk that they were just going to repeat the same maneuver, and a pandemic was going to be ignited. And because I myself had come to realize that the media was totally controlled through my own experiences working in the media, I didn't make too much effort in trying to alert the newspapers. I sent a story or a pitch to the BMJ. The editor wasn't interested. I wasn't too surprised.
That's the British Medical Journal.
Yes, for which I have worked. The Lancet wasn't interested. I sent it to the Austrian papers, no response. Profil, an Austrian magazine, actually wrote an article whitewashing Baxter, in spite of all my information. And so, as an individual, I saw very few opportunities for halting this mechanism or truck that seemed to be hurtling towards, unleashing a pandemic. So I filed criminal charges in the hope of putting a spoke in the wheel and forcing an investigation. I'd never done that before, and
did you have professional help in doing that? Because I wouldn't know how to start filing charges against anybody.
Yes, to be honest, a lawyer did tell me I had to file criminal charges and where to go, and sort of the basic laws. So I did get that advice. On my mother's side of the family, there were some lawyers, and so my mum too was very good at kind of legal reasoning and stuff like that. And so I decided to give it a shot. I'd never done it before, but I thought I might as well give it a try. The evidence is there. It's just a question of laying it out clearly. So that's what I did, and the police did start investigating.
Is it the police here in Vienna?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And my understanding is that 3 police forces are investigating: the police in Vienna, the police in Korneuburg, and the Unit for Protection of the Constitution and Fighting Terrorism was also investigating, and I know that for sure because I was summoned there for an interview. However, what has alarmed me is the fact that nothing has happened. The government is continuing to press ahead with its program of mass vaccination with these Baxter vaccines. There are no security checks in place to ensure that the material isn't contaminated. The situation is such that I might as well never have filed the charges. And last week, the head of the Unit for Protecting the Constitution and Fighting Terrorism was forced to resign, it seems, and replaced by somebody who appears to be much more loyal to the powers that want this vaccination program to go ahead. The same is true of the Austrian criminal police. The head was replaced by somebody who also has a track record of working for these so-called New World Order corporations. And so I increasingly feel the structures in government are not going to be effective in stopping and halting this danger, and that's why we have to now move towards organized civilian resistance to the vaccines.
But you must be encouraged, because parallel with your metaphorically waking up that morning to realize that, wait a minute, what's wrong with this picture? There's something happening that shouldn't be. A lot of other people all over the world have been becoming very aware of this and very active. You must be feeling heartened by that, yeah?
Absolutely. I mean, the response has been amazing and exponential. It's just every day it's amazing to see the progress, and today I heard that the Greek police are going to refuse and have officially refused to take the vaccine, which is quite a significant milestone. This is the police force which the government will rely on to force the Greeks to take a vaccine, because according to polls the Greeks do not want to take the vaccine, so eventually it will come down to the government having to either force them or try and frighten them into taking it by triggering a pandemic, and that's just one example. Germany, there's enormous resistance, and so is there in France, not to mention the USA, and increasingly in the UK. Unfortunately, my language skills are limited. I don't speak Spanish or any other language, so I'm only able to track and monitor what's happening in the countries where I speak a bit of the language, which is France, Germany, and the English-speaking countries.
I just came back from Poland, where I gave a talk about a whole bunch of stuff, including this, to a large number of very awake and aware and concerned people. And I was heartened, because maybe like yourself, I didn't know anything about what was happening in Poland. People are very, very concerned. They're very aware that there's a problem here. It's being discussed a lot, and just now I showed you a document that had been prepared by a Polish, a very highly respected Polish medic, saying that this is completely out of order, it shouldn't be happening, the vaccines are likely to be contaminated, the whole thing is spurious. And there's evidence that this wave is sort of growing all over the world, and some of this has been caused by your own civilian initiative. Now, just to back up a little bit, somewhere down the line, and this may seem like quite a long time ago now, you lost your job, probably because of this, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I mean, to be honest, I can't remember now when it was, but I think it was the end of June or the beginning of July. I was unceremoniously informed that I was not, the reports that I had been scheduled to write were not required, and since I'd been working there for almost 2 years without any complaint, and no reason was given, it was clear to me that this was connected with the fact that I had filed these criminal charges. And I also went to the US Embassy in Vienna and filed charges with the FBI. In part it was a symbolic gesture, because the reputation of the FBI is perhaps not the greatest. But
those charges that you filed, was it with the FBI or against the FBI?
Oh, no, with the FBI.
So basically asking the FBI to investigate?
Yes.
And you filed them at the American Embassy in Vienna?
Yes.
Okay. Now, some people in America have tried to follow the paper trail and said that they couldn't find any evidence that these these charges had been filed. Is it possible that they never left whatever room it was which you filed them in the American Embassy?
Not really, because I even sent copies by email to actually various FBI departments, because I'm well aware in the meantime that there are within every police structure these people who are obstructing investigations. So my aim was not just to file them physically in the US Embassy, but also to spread the word around other FBI departments throughout the USA, and I think I sent them to about 10 or 12.
Okay.
I was also assured by an agent working here at the US Embassy that she had sent the physical charges that I'd filed in the official post or whatever to the Washington headquarters. So that was an assurance
And you
I've
must have
received.